The courtroom was packed, lawyers whispering, cameras flashing, reporters scrambling for a better angle. Everyone expected a routine hearing. Everyone expected expert witnesses, detectives, maybe even confessions. But no one expected her that a tiny 3-year-old girl entered the courtroom clutching a stuffed bunny and walking beside a retired police dog named Ranger. The moment the dog saw her, he sat at her feet as if guarding the most important person in the world. The judge looked confused. The attorneys froze. Even the officers who trained Ranger had no idea what was happening. Then the judge asked gently, "Sweetheart, do you know this dog?" The girl nodded, placed her small hand on Ranger's head. And when she finally spoke, her words made the entire courtroom gasp and changed the case forever. Before we start, make sure to hit like, share, and subscribe. And really, I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. The courtroom buzzed with tension long before the judge entered. Reporters filled the back rows, whispering as their cameras clicked nonstop. Lawyers shuffled papers, detectives exchanged low murmurs, and spectators leaned forward, sensing that today's hearing would be different from the rest. Everyone waited for the key witness the prosecutor had promised, someone who would shift the entire case. But when the side door opened, no one was prepared for what stepped inside. That a tiny 3-year-old girl in a soft pink dress walked slowly toward the front, clutching a worn-out stuffed bunny. Beside her padded a large, aging police dog, Ranger, a retired K9 whose record once made headlines. The room fell into stunned silence. Even the judge's gavel paused mid-air. Ranger didn't hesitate. He moved ahead and positioned himself directly beside the witness stand, sitting tall, eyes sharp, muscles rigid, protecting her. The bailiff tried guiding the girl forward, but Ranger's low growl froze him in place. The crowd gasped. Officers recognized the dog immediately, exchanging nervous glances. Ranger had never growled without reason. The judge cleared his throat. "Young lady, are you here to speak today?" The girl nodded shyly, placing her tiny hand on Ranger's head. And just like that, the entire courtroom leaned in, realizing this would be no ordinary testimony. The confusion inside the courtroom deepened. Lawyers who had spent decades in front of judges stared with wide eyes. Ranger, the legendary K9 who once took down armed suspects and sniffed out evidence no human could, was never allowed near witnesses. Yet here he sat, pressed against the little girl as if she were the most important person in the world. When the defense attorney stepped forward, Ranger's ears shot up. A low growl rumbled from his chest, deep enough to make the attorney freeze. Gasps rippled across the room. The judge raised a hand. "Control your dog," he warned the officers, but the handlers looked helpless. "Your Honor," one stammered. "Ranger hasn't growled at anyone since he retired. We don't understand this behavior." The girl shrank behind Ranger, gripping his fur with trembling fingers. She wasn't simply attached to him. She was hiding behind him, needing him. Judge Harris frowned. Why was this child brought here? Where are her parents? And why bring a retired police dog into a trial of this magnitude? The prosecutor swallowed hard. "Your Honor, she was the only eyewitness found at the scene." Whispers exploded across the courtroom. The judge leaned forward. "Then why is she silent?" Before the prosecutor could answer, the girl lifted her hand and pointed at the man seated at the defense table. Ranger lunged a step forward, barking sharply. Every camera clicked at once. Something about that defendant terrified the child, and Ranger knew exactly why. Judge Harris softened his tone. "Sweetheart, can you tell us your name?" The little girl sat on the witness chair, legs dangling, her small fingers gripping Ranger's fur like it was the only thing keeping her steady. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out, only a tiny breath that trembled with fear. Her eyes, wide and glossy, flicked toward the man at the defense table, then instantly darted away. Ranger nudged her knee gently, as if encouraging her. The prosecutor knelt beside the witness stand. "It's okay. You're safe here. Ranger is here. We just need you to tell us what you saw." Still nothing. Instead, the girl leaned closer to Ranger. She pressed her forehead against his and whispered something so quietly not even the microphones could catch it. Ranger's ears perked. He stood, muscles taut, and took one step toward the defendant before the judge shouted, "Order. Control that dog." But the handler shook his head. "Your Honor, he's responding to her." She's saying something we can't hear. The girl suddenly tapped the wooden stand with her tiny fingers. Once, twice, pause. Twice again. A child psychologist in the gallery stood abruptly. Judge, that's a trauma communication pattern. She's trying to speak, but she can't form the words. She's signaling through the dog. The room went silent. Ranger turned back to the girl and pressed his head against her chest, calming her shaking body. Only then did she lift her eyes, slowly, painfully, toward the judge, and with a trembling voice, barely more than a breath, she whispered, "He knows what happened." A hush fell over the courtroom. Even the scratching of reporters' pens stopped. Judge Harris leaned forward, voice barely above a whisper. "Sweetheart, what do you mean he knows what happened?" "Who knows?" The girl pointed at Ranger. Her tiny finger trembled, but her eyes stayed locked on the judge. "Ranger saw everything," she whispered. Gasps echoed across the room. The defense attorney immediately stood. "Objection. A dog cannot be used as a witness." But before he could finish, Ranger's deep growl shook the wooden benches. The girl flinched, clutching his fur. The judge raised a hand. "Enough. Let the child speak, however she can." The prosecutor gently approached. "Did Ranger protect you that night?" The girl nodded slowly. Her voice quivered as she continued. "I was in my room. I heard yelling. Daddy said to stay quiet. But I got scared. I opened the door." Her tiny chin wobbled. Ranger leaned against her leg, grounding her. She pointed again, this time at the defendant. He was there. The entire court froze. She swallowed hard. "He hurt Daddy." Ranger tried to stop him. "He barked and pushed me behind him." Tears filled her eyes. "But the bad man hit Ranger, and Daddy fell." Ranger whined softly, lowering his head as if reliving the moment with her. The prosecutor's voice trembled. "Are you saying the defendant attacked your father? And Ranger witnessed it?" The little girl nodded, tears streaming. And just like that, the entire case flipped upside down. The courtroom was so silent, it felt like the air itself was holding its breath. Judge Harris leaned back, stunned by the little girl's revelation. But one question still hung in the room like a storm cloud. "How?" the defense attorney demanded. "Can a dog confirm any of this?" Before anyone could respond, Ranger stepped forward on his own. The handler froze. "Your Honor." He's moving without command. The girl placed her hand gently on Ranger's shoulder. "He knows," she whispered. "He's trying to tell you." The prosecutor approached cautiously. "Let's test something." She knelt, speaking gently to the child. "Sweetheart, earlier you tapped on the stand. Can you do it again?" The girl nodded. She tapped once. Ranger immediately Saturday, she tapped twice. Ranger stood and stared directly at the defendant. Whispers rippled through the room. The defense attorney's face drained of color. The girl tapped a longer pattern, the same pattern she had tapped the night of the attack. Ranger growled, low and unmistakably directed at the man on trial. The handler swallowed. "Your Honor, this isn't random. These are the exact cue responses Ranger was trained to give during threat identification." Judge Harris stared in disbelief. The child wasn't testifying alone. She and Ranger were giving the same story, one through words, the other through instinct. The courtroom finally understood. Ranger wasn't just protecting her. He was backing her testimony with his life. Judge Harris took a long breath, his gaze shifting between the trembling child, the growling K9, and the man seated at the defense table. The courtroom had never witnessed anything like this. Evidence spoken through a child, and confirmed through a dog trained to detect danger with absolute precision. "Bailiff," the judge said quietly, "take the defendant into custody for further interrogation." But the moment the officers stepped forward, the defendant broke. It wasn't supposed to happen. He shouted, clutching the edge of the table. His voice cracked, panic overwhelming him. "I didn't mean to hurt the kid. I only wanted to scare her father. He was getting too close." A collective gasp swept the room. Ranger lunged but stopped as the girl wrapped her arms around his neck. The officers handcuffed the man as he continued rambling, confessing to everything the girl had struggled to say. Judge Harris turned toward the witness stand. His voice softened. "You were very brave today, both of you." Reporters wiped their eyes. Attorneys dropped their arguments. Even the bailiff swallowed hard. The little girl leaned her forehead against Ranger's. "He saved me," she whispered. Ranger gently placed his head in her lap, closing his eyes, as if the nightmare was finally over.